Hello everyone, and welcome to the Darkest Hour. I'm your host, Amanda Jane. I'm sure that most of us, most of the time, aren't encountering insanely unpredictable people or events on a daily basis. And for the most part, we're probably okay with that. But take something I learned recently. In New York alone, people are bitten 10 times more each year by other people than worldwide by sharks. So, in our same world, strange things really are happening every day. Sure, maybe it's not happening to every single person every single day, but collect all those experiences, put them together, and you've got more than enough to make some loose statistics. These loose statistics and tonight's episode only go to show there's a whole lot of strangeness in this world of ours. So, let's get started, shall we? I probably won't respond after this story. It was a really dark period in my life, and I'm sure I won't come off as the hero by any means. But I've learned my lessons and made right by God for my sins. This happened a good couple of decades ago. When I was in my 20s, I was a hellraiser, and also heavily addicted to meth. I don't hold on to a lot of memories from this period in my life, but this one, well, let's just say it's left a scar. It also may have saved my life. So I was addicted to meth, but my girlfriend, she was too. We enabled each other out of community college with our addiction. She said that her and her friends were going to do it to study all night during finals week. But after finals week, we just didn't stop. 1,000 unfinished, poorly planned projects were tossed out of my dorm room the day they found us smoking in the stairwell. I couldn't go home. That meant breaking up with her and my other new love. Not to mention, I wasn't ready to tell my family that my girlfriend and I got kicked out of college for smoking ice together. So, she and I began living in my minivan off campus. We'd still sneak into the gym to shower, but most of our time was consumed by getting money for the drug, getting the drug, doing the drug, and repeat. I somehow kept my job at the printing shop throughout all of this, but even that money started to run out just as fast as the meth. Not in the right state of mind, she and I came up with a plan to rob someone at the bus terminals. They're deserted and a good 100 yards away from any building or window for prying eyes. It didn't take us long to catch a single rider getting off the bus alone at night. It was close to 1 a.m. We checked the bus schedule and waited for the last couple of buses to make their rounds through. Finally, on the second to last bus scheduled to roll through, an older man steps off the bus. We wait. He's the only one. Doors shut. Bus pulls off. My heart starts racing, and I hear my girl hop up. She's already on her way to the man before I can give my next action a second thought. She runs to approach the man, slowing down her pace as she nears him, catching his attention with a pretty face and a naive question about bus times. The man happily stops and turns to answer her inquiry. But before he's able to pull his hands from his coat pockets to check his watch, I'm supposed to come up from behind and knock him out. I do. The first swing doesn't take him down. The second one does. We empty his pockets and make a dash back to the van. Parked miles away, it's our first chance to actually see the loot we've collected. $20, a bus pass, and some receipts. The 20 got us what we needed for the night. It was the easiest money I've ever made. We hatched a plan to hit another bus stop the next night. This time we were going to try to kidnap the person, not to hurt him, but thinking that we'd take him to an ATM and make them clean it out. I kept a hairbrush in my pocket to resemble a gun, along with a fabric sack to pull over a person's head. The sun sets and we're in another empty bus terminal, waiting for the next lick. Sure enough, as the light poles begin to turn on, a bus rolls in and drops off a single passenger. Again, my girl jumps up from our hidden position before we even establish that this is the guy we're going to get. No turning back now. It's game time. She starts jogging up to him. I duck out of view and start to make my way around unseen, so I'll be facing his back when he turns. I watch as my girl catches up to him to say her lines. I'm watching her while slowly approaching from behind. Her face isn't smiling. She looks almost scared. But I don't really process her expression before I'm already picking up my pace and volume of steps. But as if he knew I was coming, the man turned around to face me. I notice his eyes immediately. His eyes are black, pure black. No pupils, no whites around, just black. It startled me enough to throw me off my game. My usual confident aggression became a tailspin of stammers. With the fake gun still in my pocket, I managed to mumble out, "Give me your money." But he just stares at me. The momentary pause of silence gives me another chance to say it with my chest, and I said, "Did you hear me? Empty your pockets." But again, this guy just stares at me, and then he smiles. Creepiest, most arrogant smile I've ever seen. His arrogance sends me into a rage, and I use my free hand to grab him by his collar. But when I do, it feels like he somehow got me by the throat. But I can see his arms. They're down at his side. He doesn't even touch my girl, yet I see her hit the ground. Both of these events, the choking sensation, my girl falling, I'm so confused. Moreover, why couldn't I fully grip this guy's neck? Why was I getting weaker? And just as I had that thought, everything went black. The next time I see light, I can tell that time has passed, but I have no idea how much. This was before cell phones, so it wasn't just as easy as looking at my phone. But the other thing I notice is that I can't move my hands. They're tied. Not only that, but I'm tied to something, a large pillar supporting the top cover of the bus terminal. I don't see my girl, not immediately, but I can hear her.
Oh my god, what the fuck, Ian?
Then she starts to cry. I go to work on whatever has me tied up, asking her if she's tied too. I realize the ties aren't even that tight, so they're off quick. I move around the pillar to help my girl, and that's when I see her face. And when I do, I immediately start to feel around my face. Her face is riddled with words like junkie and human garbage. But worst of all, she's got a capital L literally carved into her forehead. And from the feel of it, I've got one too. When she sees me, she immediately bursts into tears, begging me to untie her, pleading that I tell her if her face looks like mine. Once untied, she goes over to the plexiglass cover over the benches at the bus stop. And by the shrill that she lets out, it's apparent she caught her reflection. By this point, neither of us are high. We're majorly jonesing, but everything is missing. We've already had no drugs, but now everything we had was gone. No keys, no wallets, nothing. My girl is majorly freaking out, and she decides to pick up her pace and is well ahead of me as we make our way back to the van. As we make our way back to the van, I'm going through my pockets, and that's when I find that the guy did leave something behind. A note. I stop my girl and I ask her to check her pockets. She does, and we each have one. We each had one in our back right pocket. He starts the notes out with our full names, followed by, You're still breathing. You're lucky. I know exactly who you are. I'll be watching. Next time, you won't be so lucky. The moment we finish reading our notes, I look over and my girl just gives me this horrified look. Then it clicks. She's looking just beyond me, behind me. I quickly turn around to see what the fuck is going on, and there's no one there. She keeps pointing and looking horrified. Then she screams. Just a pure panicked scream. And then she just takes off. Books it in the direction of town. I don't even entertain chasing her. I'm so confused. And I watch as she disappears from sight. So I'm alone. It seems about dawn, and I'm desperate to get to my car. So I keep walking. I don't know what the fuck my girl's gonna do, going out in public with her face looking like that. I was sure she was gonna be arrested. Well, out of sight, out of mind, I guess. I made my way back to my van. When I finally get there, I'm shocked. I see my keys sitting on top of it. No sign of my wallet, but 1 for 2 isn't bad. Getting into the car, I realize the horror that is my face. Scribbles, scratches, the L. It's a shit show. And my mom, she's going to cry, no doubt. Even though I wasn't living with my parents at the time, my ID still had their address. Major paranoia kicked in, and I decided to make a drive to their house, afraid for the worst. Did this guy kill my family? Or do something to my home? He had not. Everyone was fine. Only thing that they were afraid of was my face. And yes, my mom cried. I had to plead with my parents not to call the cops. Call it leftover paranoia or the genuine concern that I would go to jail for trying to rob someone. Not to mention the guy we actually did rob. I was sure that he had filed some sort of report. They didn't end up calling the police, but that was the last time I manipulated my parents into doing anything to save my ass. To be honest, it was all a pretty fucked up situation. I mean, I know I was doing people wrong, absolutely, but I guess that's what I mean. Like, this guy could have killed us, right? Sure, he slightly disfigured us, but why did he stop there? Was he interrupted? So many questions. It was almost easier just to focus on my sobriety. My dad, he didn't talk to me for weeks, and that was rough. When he did talk to me, he had a pretty valid and unsettling question. How did this guy know where to put my keys? I hadn't thought about that at all, which I blamed on drugs. I was just happy that something had worked out, you know? But yeah, how did he know? I parked so far away from the terminal, and he hadn't seen us before he'd gotten off the bus, like that wasn't even possible. What I keep going over, can't let go of, is what the hell was wrong with that dude's eyes. And also, how he managed to choke me without even putting his hands on me. My parents chalked it up to I was high, and he probably didn't have those eyes, and he likely was touching me. But I'm telling you, no way. Even in my highest of highs, when I'm sober, I can differentiate things. And this one, that's definitely how it happened. Oh, and yes, I still have the scar. It's faint, thanks to a lot of TLC. Better for worse, I'm a hat guy. I never physically saw my girl again, but I know she didn't learn her lesson, at least not quickly. A mutual friend told me that she went off the deep end. 2 years after this whole thing, she'd been locked up for attempted robbery and assault. Tattooed her whole face, told people that she was the son of Satan. Not the daughter, but the son. Yeah, meth. It's a hell of a drug. No idea what happened after that. I remember trying to look her up once Facebook was a thing for me. No such luck. Given my colorful past, I don't keep up with a lot of people from my hometown. I've been sober more than 20 years, but other than telling this story, There's no going back there for me. I've traveled alone through the US many times. This has given me many opportunities to live through some absolutely bizarre situations. I've had 2 different encounters where I thought I was about to enter the nightmare of my life. The first, I was camping near Tsuke, about an hour from Santa Fe, on a weeknight. It was cold, and I was supposed to leave early in the morning for Texas, and it was forecasted to snow. Being the young genius that I was, I slept in my Jeep to negate all of this. Middle of the night, an SUV quite literally skids to a stop across the gravel into my campground. This wakes me up, and I'm obviously on edge. This SUV is blasting mariachi music, incredibly odd, but I figured these people were just drunks or high. The doors open and these people get out, and they start running through the woods, screaming bloody murder. I mean, these people sounded like they're gonna die. I'm at an absolute, utter loss. After maybe a minute or 2, everything gets quiet suddenly, and I don't hear them anymore. Tucked into my sleeping bag, I'm starting to absolutely crap myself. I'm sitting there, cramped up in the back of my Jeep, wishing and praying them away. I don't know how long it was. I didn't dare look at my phone. But eventually, I heard quiet voices around my Jeep. The only thing I really caught was, "Do you think somebody's in there?" As you can imagine, I absolutely lost my cool. I just started screaming and I crawled as fast as I could to the front seat. I turned the lights on and I start the ignition. As I look up, I see these people scattering away like roaches into the trees and down the mountainside. Ever since, I keep a J-frame revolver in my center console whenever I travel. My state permit is recognized in a lot of places, so it's a nice luxury to have. The second one, this was in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. I was headed to Oklahoma from the East Coast to visit my family for Christmas. I was too cheap to pay for a hotel, so I got off I-40, parked behind a hotel, and slept in my Jeep. Middle of the night, I got woken up by the sound of a small scraping noise. Confused, I open my eyes, and I see a figure outside, attempting to work the zipper on my soft top. Horrified, I simply sat there. It wasn't until he or she managed to stick their hand through the small opening they'd created that I reached out, grabbed the nearest thing to me, which was a Coleman lantern, and I smashed their hand with it. Without waiting to see the result of this, I jumped to the front seat, worked the ignition, and peeled out of that hotel parking lot faster than I think I've ever left anywhere. I didn't stop for gas, red lights, breakfast, anything. I merged straight onto I-40 and continued west for almost 30 miles. Needless to say, that was one of the last times I ever slept in my Jeep. This happened last Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Recently, my company started providing armed security for an old hotel under a new name and management in southern Colorado Springs. I don't know exactly how old this place is, but it's been an active hotel since I was very young. As we started the contract, the standard for the first 2 months was to have 2 security officers working. 1 senior and 1 new. My last shift, I was paired with a real annoying rookie, and this kid was uptight and dumb. For years, It's been known that many deaths, be it suicide, natural, or even a few instances of murder, have occurred at this hotel. My concern was to make sure heavy drug users didn't sneak into the building and squat. The new kid wanted to inspect everything from the littlest noises to anyone walking around after midnight to see if they were guests or not. Well, I think when we got called to the basement, it changed the kid's overly inquisitive nature, or just plain affected him. "Front desk to security," the hotel radio poorly chimed out. "Go for security?" I replied, thinking it was just another guest call, complaining about their neighbor or a homeless person in the lobby. "Can you both check out the basement? A motion sensor trip was sent to the front desk switchboard, and I wasn't down there. You'll have to come get the key for the access stairs," the night auditor said, half awake. Thinking to myself, if we have to get a key to access it, how would someone have gotten down there? As we approached the front desk, the night auditor stated that the switchboard had gone off twice more since she called us, less than 3 minutes earlier. So, curious, I asked how someone could get down there without a key to the stairwell door. "Oh, I forgot to mention, the broken elevator, it isn't broken. It just goes from the first floor to the service area of the basement without the maid's key at the moment." She stated this like it was no big deal. Annoyed, I grabbed the key off the counter. I told the rookie to look alive in case someone went down there knowing that bit of information. At the mouth to the basement, behind the doors, we began hearing heavy moans and breathing. It sounded like it could have either been directly behind the door or on the complete other side of the basement. "Before we go in, I'm the lead officer. You will not do anything unless I tell you to. Stay on my 6 and follow my lead. Do you understand?" I barked at the rookie, to which he did a quick but confident nod. I pushed open the door and announced, "Security. If anyone is in here, announce yourself now." This is standard for when we enter an area on most of our properties when a suspected trespasser is present. The rookie followed behind me as I proceeded. The safety lights were on. Every other fixture was on, and since there was enough light to see everything clearly, I didn't feel it necessary to turn on the full lights. Toward the complete opposite side of the basement, we began to hear what sounded like someone jingling a large key ring. My first thought was, oh joy, another meth head. As I began moving down the corridor, I heard the sound of the hood of a holster disengage. Pissed, I turned right around to chastise the rookie for drawing his gun, but anger turned into confusion. He was standing there, pale, fixated, eyes forward. Did you hear that?" he stammered. I replied, "It might just be a machine switching, but remember, follow my lead." Now, thinking that there was someone at the end of the corridor in the main laundry, I unsnapped my taser latch, just in case. As we approached the end of the basement to the other locked stairwell access, we didn't find anything out of the ordinary. No person trying to nest, but as we reached the freight elevator, we found a sign that set the next set of events in motion. The sign read, "Security. All elevator access to the basement will be unavailable overnight from the 1st to the 12th. If you need access, get the key from the front desk." I took a picture to show the night auditor, but I got a chill while doing so. As the rookie and I began double-checking every area on the way back to the stairs, we started experiencing minor paranormal occurrences. And they started after the rookie found a few spiritual items. While still in the main laundry toward the far back secondary stairs, the rookie found an unburned bundle of white sage wrapped in white lace, sitting on top of one of the large machines. Not knowing anything about sage, the rookie quickly snatched it off the machine.
Hey, I think I found a weird joint.
I turned to see him holding a bundle of white sage. Hey, dumbass. First, put that down. Second, that's not marijuana. It's cleansing sage. This kid didn't know anything about paranormal phenomena or how to protect against it, so I told him not to pick up anything, especially if it isn't something he's familiar with. After he put it back where he grabbed it from, the first occurrence happened. As he set it down, 20 feet behind him, a shelf filled with clean, folded towels fell completely off the wall. As we documented it for a report, a small snicker came from further up the corridor, but only like a split second of a snicker. We began moving up to the next section where the overstocked furniture and appliances were stored. An overhead pipe that was not leaking when we passed under it earlier was now leaking, like a huge crack just happened. I thought this was odd because I was sure with the amount of water leaking, we would have heard it, regardless of our location in the basement. As I was inspecting the pipe for the point of the leak, the rookie yet again picked up something.
Hey, this isn't Sage 2, is it?
I look and I see him smelling Palo Santo wood, tied with a red ribbon. Dude, I replied, exhausted, as he just drops it. I look down in the puddle of water from the leak, and I see a bare footprint within the water. Starting to get freaked out, I stated we needed to get back upstairs. We proceeded to the second-to-last location. Immediately, I noticed a cross on a wall that I didn't spot earlier, with lavender sage wrapped in purple lace. Take a quick look around and make sure nothing is going on, so we can go, I said, trying not to show that I was getting unnerved. Nothing happened in the section until just before we moved through the double doors, and all the safety lights behind us, back to the laundry, started flickering. Honestly thinking something was going to happen, but not wanting to show that I was starting to freak, I told the rookie to move to the last room. Finally, the last area where we came in from. Luckily, there were only 2 small planning offices in the hub room. The difference between when we entered the basement till now was that the light was on inside the hub room. I told the rookie to watch the hall as I checked the planning offices, which was quick. But when I went to the hub room to check and turn off the light, I looked down at the server monitor for the main cameras. In the hub room, there was the whole hotel camera system on one monitor. Up at the front desk, the cameras only show the exterior, the hallways of the rooms, and the pool areas. So I took a glance at the screen. I noticed the lights were still flickering in the main laundry. A big pause in the lights occurred, and the night vision started to kick on. Slowly, a figure from the laundry became visible on the screen. I realized while intently staring that the figure was standing next to the machine that the white sage was on. A bright flash lit the monitor window as the light came back on. My heart dropped as the room lay empty. The person who was standing in the night vision of the camera was just gone. I looked away to the door frame of the hub room, and I saw a bundle of black sage nailed to the frame, wrapped in black twine. I walked out, closing the door behind me. We clear? Asked the rookie. Still stunned by what I saw on the camera, I replied, "We're done down here." We enter the stairwell and lock the door. Back in the lobby, the night auditor came over and asked if we found anything. "I'm gonna go out front and smoke. Then I'll show you the issues we found," I said, pulling the pack from my pocket. The auditor, seemingly knowing that I was startled, asks, "You didn't touch the wards, did you?" I looked her in the eye without saying a word. "Oh dear, you did. It's now been roughly a week since I've been there, and I can say I'm not looking forward to going back." So I've decided to share a couple of experiences from when I was living with my grandparents in the 90s. Their house wasn't very big, just a small 2-bedroom rambler, shaped a lot like a mobile home, very rectangular. To get it out of the way, I was living with my grandparents because my parents were not equipped to be parents, basically. 3 years in, my mom would overdose, and my dad would be incarcerated. But before and after that, Grandma and Grandpa's house for me. The first experience was small enough, and no one was around to vouch for me, so I'm on my own with this one. I was in first grade. When it happened, I was in the bathroom, brushing my teeth. At that age, or that height rather, I couldn't quite see the mirror without stepping on this little stool. I went to grab the stool to stand on, and there was like this resistance to it, like it was stuck or someone was pulling on it. I confirmed with my eyeballs. The stool was stuck on nothing. There is nothing. Yet, as I tugged and tugged, it wouldn't budge. And then suddenly, it gave way, sending me backwards into the outside of the tub. Sitting there, shocked, I watched as the stool went from laying on its side to slowly picking itself back up. I ran out of that bathroom so fast, telling my grandma and grandpa what happened. They laughed, not in a mean way, but in a way that was wrapped with words like, "Aw, honey, so sorry that happened to you." Except I wanted to know what exactly had just happened to me. The next incident wouldn't take place for another year, when I was 8. I remember we were moving swiftly. We had a strictly enforced bedtime of 10 p.m. at Grandma and Grandpa's, and we really wanted to watch a movie. At some point, my cousin stopped moving around and I told him to hurry up so we could go watch the movie. But instead of responding, he just points towards the bathroom toilet, which is on the left side of the tub. I turn and I look over. The toilet paper roll, it's moving on its own. Not just unraveling on its own. No, it's unraveling upwards, as though someone is actually pulling on the toilet paper. We both stare at this for probably only a few seconds before we hear the crashing sound of something in the bathtub. We jump and we turn to see that everything has fallen off the shelves. And I mean everything. Just as we hear my grandma in the hallway shouting, "What are you boys doing in there?" The sink turns on, water coming out of the spout at full capacity. As my grandma walks in, she sees what looks like a mess. My cousin and I, we run out. We go towards our grandpa, with our grandma following behind. Once we told them and promised we didn't make the mess, it was still a similar reaction to the first experience. They exchanged looks, they laughed, and reassured us it was the wind, maybe air from the furnace. Well, they didn't see what we saw. After that incident, I never really had any other concrete, strange experiences, not in that house. Though I've never really let go of the feeling that it was definitely haunted. Both of my grandparents are gone now, so there's no way to ask, but part of me feels like maybe they knew all along that their house was haunted, and they just didn't want to scare us kids. When I was 15, 16, I had bad taste in friends. One time, it landed me on the side of the road in an area that I was only recently made aware of. But there's even more to the story than just my shitty friend. My friend, who was a year older than me and my driver for the night, took me out to basically the sticks of the valley to hang out with some guy who probably was way too old to be hanging out with us. I was basically immediately uncomfortable. I spent the next 3 or 4 hours sitting on a couch, watching a shitty TV show while trying to get a cat to let me pet it, all while my friend sucked face with this dude. Whatever. Definitely not the worst part. The real issue arose when we left this guy's house. My friend was drunk. I was trying to convince her to pull over and let me drive the car, despite me not having a license. But she refused. I'd only realized how wasted she was by the time we'd gotten into the car and she started driving, or trying to anyway. Clearly, she or they had found a way to get wasted without me even noticing. That night, I had a beer, but it had been literally like 4 hours since that beer. I felt logical, responsible, but again, she refused. Only this time, she did so by stopping in the middle of the road and telling me to get the fuck out of her car. Before I could even respond, she was crawling over me, not putting the car in park. As she tried to open my door to physically kick me out, the car was still moving forward. I yell for her to stop. She doesn't. I reach over, throw the car in park, and I pull the emergency brake with my other hand. Screeching happens, but the car stops. She sort of flies into the dashboard a bit, still leaning over me, so clearly not buckled in. But I'm too mad to even ask if she's okay, and I know that she is because she's still yelling for me to get out, calling me every name under the sun, telling me how much of a freak I am, blah, blah. She'd done this once before. The previous time it had been in front of a bunch of people. She was also drunk. This time, though, I was so angry, I removed myself from the car. The road was dark, and though I didn't want to be out there, I couldn't imagine driving with her. Still, even as angry as I was, I pleaded for her to stay with me, to let me pull her car over to the side of the road. And then she looked up at me, quickly got herself up, reaching over and closing the passenger door, locking it quickly, and locking eyes with me. She then reached down for my purse, rolled down her window, and proceeded to chuck my purse into total darkness on the other side of the road. I remember yelling out loud something along the lines of, "What the fuck is your problem?" But she'd already started driving off, peeling out originally because she was still in park. And that was that. Middle of nowhere, by myself. I had to get my bag and find my phone. I was just surrounded by darkness, and the other side of the road, the side I needed to be on to get my phone, my bag, it only offered more darkness and less of a shoulder. While I debated crossing the street, I heard something behind me in the woods. So without hesitating, I crossed the street. I ran. By the time I made it across, I realized that I was basically in or on the road. It's pitch black, and from what I could tell, it's a blind corner. Then, before I even got a chance to feel or look around for my bag, I swore I saw headlights. I wasn't sure what to do. Make a run for it across the street. If it was my friend, I was absolutely taking a risk of being hit. Could I get any more off of the road if I just stayed on this side? Disoriented a bit, I tried to breathe. As I did, I focused on what I originally thought had been headlights headed my way, Only it wasn't headlights. To be fair, I'm still not sure what the hell it was, but I'll describe what I saw and tell you what I think it was. Pressed against bushes, but not wanting to walk too far into them, I stood there staring. I watched as this misshapen ball of white light floated around the blind corner and towards where I was standing. It never got right in front of my face, but I was baffled at how it produced so much light. I'd never seen something like this in my life, and never seen something like it since either. This was the year 2002, so the thought of a drone, it just wouldn't even exist. Plus, the light. It was powerful. I have no idea how. Powerful, yet it seemed like it didn't want to harm me at all. It was just sort of there. And though I'd never really seen a ghost before, I was pretty sure that what I was seeing and feeling was a spirit of some kind. I used the emanating light to find my bag. Luckily, it hadn't made it far at all, thanks to my friend's weak, drunk arms. I looked back at the light. It was still hovering around me, and I just felt like I needed to say something to them. So I did. Thank you. It just stayed there. So again, I used the light to make my way to the other side of the road, safely to the one with the shoulder. Back in the day, our cell phone carrier was Singular. For those of you who remember, it was a shitty AT&T spinoff that became AT&T. Twice. Moral of the story, it was very bad cell service. I was shocked to see that I had service, knowing that my friend and I didn't have service in this exact area just earlier. It felt like a miracle. I called my mom without hesitation, and the moment she answered, the light sort of started to drift away, getting smaller, so I could only assume further away. But it didn't feel far away. I don't know how that sounds, how any of it sounds, but it's how it felt. My mom was pretty furious. Naturally, earlier in the evening I'd lied to her about where I was going, so she was not expecting me to be in the middle of nowhere. And apparently, she'd been trying to call me because she'd woken up from a nightmare. What was her nightmare? It was that I had been killed in a car accident. If you're wondering, no, my friend, not so friend, didn't get into a car accident either. Like most things in life, she walked out of that situation seeming to not really give much of a fuck. For the record, that was the last time I hung out with her. As for the light, no idea, but I'm gonna stick with some sort of guardian angel or something. Like my aunt who died suddenly when I was 14. She was like my favorite person ever, and I was kinda hers. And as strange as it sounds, there was something about the light that just felt familiar. So, I like to think it was her. Well, friends, it appears we've reached the end of tonight's episode. But be sure to join me every Friday night for a brand new one. I want to thank those who shared their stories, and a big thanks to all of you for listening. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to The Darkest Hour, and tap the bell so you never miss a thing. I sure do appreciate all of it, and I can't thank you enough. I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons for their unwavering support. MISANTHROPIA, Shane Q, Monica L, The Dark Cosmos, Zoe Watt, Shelley B, Rat Girl, ALISHA S, and ERIN G. If you want to support The Darkest Hour in other ways, consider joining my Patreon. Check out patreon.com/thedarkesthour, or click the link in the description to learn more. You can keep up with me and all things Darkest Hour over on my Instagram, at thedarkesthouryt. Or if you prefer to follow me on Twitter, AmandaJaneTDH. Do you have stories like these? I'd love to share them. Send them to me, amandadarkesthour@gmail.com, or on the Darkest Hour subreddit, The Darkest Hour YT. Stay spooky.